What's up, beautiful people? Thank you so much for coming back another time. I brought on the show with me this time my friends AC Stauble and Isaac Hill of the Plant Cunning podcast. And they are going to talk about their conference. They are throwing a conference in northern New York. And they invited me to be a part of it both last year and this year. I participated last year, had a ball, had a blast. It was a great time. Those folks are amazing hosts. They've got excellent things to say, and they've got super amazing friends also. They invited me this year. I don't actually think that I'm going to be able to make it. At the time that we recorded this podcast, it looked like I was going to be able to make it work, and it just is not actually going to happen. So I had to make a little correction here. But even without me there, I do think that you should go, because I know for a fact that it's going to be an amazing time. There are some great speakers who are going to be participating there who are not me, but who are equally great, even better than I would have been. And this event is going to be a great community building experience. So especially if you're in the area, then you should check it out. But there's a 0% chance that you will go wrong by going to this event. It's super dope, and yeah, you should check it out for sure. So that's over at plantcunning.com. Check it out. And without further ado, please enjoy the conversation where we talk about how great the last one was. Peace and blessings, beautiful people, and welcome to another edition of What is the Time, a podcast about personal sovereignty, celestial timing, and living where the getting is good. I am your boy Zamboni. I'm your DJ for the affair where we'll be getting down and won't be coming up for air. And I brought my friends along with me today. I got my friends AC and Isaac from the Plant Cunning podcast. I have been honored to be on their show a few times. This is their first time appearing on What is the Time. And we are here to talk about their amazing Plant Cunning conference that took place over this past summer, and which is going to become a series. And so I am so very excited to have you all. What's up, Isaac and AC?
Hello. Hey. Good to see you, Zamboni.
Yeah.
Yes. Good to see you. To you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. If you want to support the production of this kind of content, you can always go to ZamboniFunk.com. You can get a reading there. You can get an astrology reading. You can get a mini reading where I'll just sort of talk to you about what's going on and in a video format. You can go to my Patreon where you can find an electoral report. You can go to Spotify, Tidal, Pandora, Apple Music, wherever you like to get your music at, and listen to ZamboniFunk music. There's a whole bunch of ways for you to support. You can always send a tip via Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. That is continuously appreciated. Thank you so much for being here. Let's think about conference time. It was so much fun to see you all. We had met several times on the internet, and then finally you invited me out to your gorgeous herb farm that you have out there in upstate New York, and it was wonderful. Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a delightful time.
Yeah, so glad that you were able to come a little bit early too, so that we could hang out for days before the event. And it was nice to just be able to get to know you more and enjoy that time before the mad rush of all the other folks came.
For sure. So tell me about this conference. What is this conference? Where did it come from? Why did you decide to make Plant Cunning not only a podcast, but also a conference, a way for people from disparate areas of the world and of the country, and from disparate areas of thought and corners of the internet to all get together in the one place? Why did you decide to do that? How did this come about?
Well, I think especially after the last few years that in-person events are just so important. It's like the real grounded connection with people. And the internet is fantastic. And I love being able to get podcasts from people from all over the world. And I get to study with people from all over the world with online classes. And like we get to talk with you, and like we, just in regards to like for you, we've had several episodes together where we talked about the stars and timing, and we loved your vibe. We feel like we're on the same wavelength, but being in person is a totally different situation. It's like that's where we really are together in the same space as well as the same time. And I think that's just a very important thing to really build community in a real way, where there's, because like on the internet, like even people on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, they're in a way, they're real people with real feelings, but we can forget that sometimes. When people just spout their opinions and whatever, all these labels and these things, and get into arguments and all that kind of stuff, we forget the real embodied presence of the people, of other people. And so that's one of the reasons that we want to have the conference. Also,
being a podcaster, you make these creations and you send them out into the internet, and you really have not much idea who's listening and what's impacting people and who your audience is. Like, even coming into the conference weekend, we had this list of 100 names of people who are coming, but I remember telling you, like, I'm not sure who they are really, like what to expect. Like, these are names on a paper. And then throughout the course of the weekend, I got to know most of them a little bit. And that was one of the main reasons of doing the conference, was to be able to build relationships with people who are in our network, whether it's like a regional network or people who are in like a similar like thought process that we are in, but building those relationships is, I think, what's going to get us through the hard times that we're facing, like having resiliency at a local, regional, and even world level is really what's going to see us through.
Yeah, we also did want to build that local community too. Like we have our friends and our neighbors that we are in community with, and we have people come to the conference from far away, like you, for instance. But there's like that, being in community with those people in like the hour radius is also very important. I think most of the people that came were from like an hour and a half, 2 hour radius. So that's another thing too, is like helping to build those connections with like-minded people, because we're interested in kind of, I mean, they're actually kind of popular in the culture these days, but they're still a little odd or weird, the things that we like to talk about and think about.
Astrology,
magic, occult philosophy.
But people were hungry for it from this area. They want to learn more and they want to be a part of those conversations. So it was exciting to see.
Yeah, for sure. I really one of the things that, as you mentioned, AC, I got to show up a few days early, and so I got to sort of witness the thing really coming together in a way that it felt really, I felt honored to be able to witness that. So the idea here is this idea of like coming together and sort of like building out a community. And what I got to see was when I got here. So as I understand it, AC, you've got some like event planning in your background, right?
Yeah, both of us, but yeah.
Both of you do? Okay, cool. Because but this is the first like conference that you've sort of like built on your own
on our property. For sure. I used to do conferences in college, but it's been a while, and some online conferences since then. But yeah,
right.
Yeah,
well, so when I got here, it was almost go time. It wasn't quite there yet, but it was like the pressure was on, and there was a lot to do yet. And are all the people going to get fed? And is there going to be enough parking for people? And like just crises happening at all times. And what I got to witness was you all sort of like standing up to that pressure, but then also having put together a really strong team of people who were able to support you in that process, in the process of making something greater than you could do by yourself happen. They made that sort of thing happen, and it was amazing to witness. And we were at a point where like I was aware that I was going to slow you down because I don't know where things are on your farm, and I'm not a strong farm worker to begin with. And like it was a situation where everyone was doing 1,000 things, and I knew that for you to even instruct me on how to do something would ultimately slow you down. So I just mostly stayed out of the way and saw what was happening. And at the end of it, I felt so touched. I was like so delighted to have seen everyone coming together. And so it was the kind of event where it was like sort of punk rock in its way, right? There's definitely like a punk herbalist element going on there.
DIY.
Yeah. DIY is maybe a better way to say that.
Punk
and then, but yeah. I mean, there was some like spikes on people's stuff and like people covered in tattoos and this kind of thing. But so there was that element. But then there was also like the locals in the area as well who were sort of galvanized by this situation. You had neighbors who were donating tents and who showed up making breakfast, and it was clearly a community event, and it was a way for us to sort of all get together literally under one tent or under one roof. There you had renovated a barn that had been coming for years up to that point, which had been literally up to the ceiling in shit, as I understand it.
Cool stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
That was a
order level
crap
stuff with a pigeon poop layer on top.
Yeah. And then a cow manure, 100-year-old cow manure layer on the bottom.
Yeah.
Right. So
inside a beautiful barn. It was beautiful, hand hewn. It's so glad that we got it uncovered.
Yeah. And so you took this space which was literally covered in shit, and you turned it into something that was beautiful, that was a space where we could all cooperate and generate a coalition together. Literally in the same space together, breathing the same air, being people in the same space together. And that was something that was really beautiful that I was able to witness. I was able to see the cooperation and the teamwork that it took to make all of that happen, to make all of it happen on time. And so that was really, really excellent to me. And so if the goal was to bring people together across political divides or across cultural divides and this kind of thing, then what I witnessed was that happening in real time in a very real way. And so I was at least delighted to see that happen.
Yeah, I think that goal was definitely fulfilled in some aspects for sure. Like just people coming who didn't even know anybody else at the conference. They just were like, I'm going to this by myself to see what happens. They came up to me and could not believe the type of friendships that they were leaving with, like the conversations that they had, how welcoming people were. And like I said, when we were going in, I had no idea who these names on the list were going to unfold to be, but everyone just brought their sparkle, their good energy, their like openness, and we were able to really like build some friendships and relationships from, just getting together. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah. It was delightful to witness and to be a part of that event. And so I'm curious what your impressions of the event were. Now, I know that you are the proprietors of the event, and so you're going to have plenty of things that you like feel bad that you didn't make happen and maybe it could have been better, but like in truth, I witnessed crowds of people smiling, just beaming, everyone like having a lovely time. And so I'm interested in what your impressions of the event were, and how you felt about how it all came together. Did everyone get fed?
Everyone got fed. Whew. We had
big time.
Plenty of food left over.
Yep.
That was one of my jobs. But yeah, it was just like something that we had been working at all all year, all summer, especially, and like stressing out about, and like, are we gonna have enough people to pay for the speakers? Are we gonna have enough food to feed the people? Or, all these little things that go into, is there gonna be enough place? Is there gonna be enough, porta potties? all and then to see it like actually like happen and like go off without a hitch was just so amazing to me and gratifying on a very deep level. I mean, definitely there are a lot of things that we can do better next year, but for the most part, I was very happy with how it turned out, and yeah, feel very, very happy, and I feel blessed and grateful for all the people who helped make it happen and all the people who came, because everybody who was there made it what it was,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I feel just like so in awe of our team of volunteers, but also just the people in attendance and the speakers. Like, I had one speaker, like I saw filling up the hand wash, like, just stepping in to make it a success. And, there was a moment when the first couple cars were arriving on Friday of campers, and there was a crew who came up, and one of the women said that she used to run herb conferences for many years, and she was just so thrilled to like come and experience another one that she didn't have to do any of that work. She knew exactly what I had been going through over the past few months. And I remember just being like, yeah, you're here now. Like, you are totally held. Welcome to this like bubble, this farm. Like, I got you. And I didn't believe it exactly until like the words came out of my mouth, and I was like, no, actually I do got you. Like, this is going to be great. And yeah, the folks that were stepping up to volunteer, like we just worked as such a cohesive group. It was, I don't know, it was amazing to see like how well everybody was able to make everything run so smooth, from the food and like always having tea. Sarah from the People's Cauldron was just like an incredible help in the tea and coffee making the best like chai you've ever had. It was just, yeah,
reishi and
yeah,
chaga.
reishi, yeah, chai. So yeah, there was just like that element of the volunteers, and how everybody just seemed to like work together, but also like the speakers were amazing. Like, I could not decide myself like which workshops I wanted to go to. It was really hard to make those decisions, and I kind of missed all of them because I was like so I felt like I was kind of like floating around all weekend, like a little bit here, a little bit there, having like meaningful conversations. Like, it was almost like I was like in an observer state, like watching it all happen. And I didn't feel that like immense pressure that I had felt throughout the whole months preparing to it. It was like, I remember we said like, once we hit play on the conference, it's just going to like take off, and it really did. And then I got to just sort of like listen and enjoy and watch. So those were sort of my impressions. And on like a personal level, I felt like it was a bit of an initiation for me. I had 3 different powerhouse women in my life like give me these like power piece necklaces, and they like put the necklaces over my head and told me that they were proud of me, and that I was doing the thing, and I just felt like I was stepping into something, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. Maybe like some sort of adulting, but maybe it's like being like accepting of like a leadership role in the community by being able to have this type of space, and like my skill sets of being able to organize that type of an event. But yeah, on that personal note, it did feel like I was stepping into something. And I remember in January of last year, I had a reading from you, and you told me that in the fall of this year, I was going to have like some sort of opening or blossoming in my career. Like, I was going to be stepping into a public light. And I feel like that was the conference. Like, that did happen. So listeners, like definitely go hit up Zamboni for a reading because he knows what he's talking about.
That is delightful. I'm so glad that it went down that way.
Yeah.
It yeah. So I'm thinking about what a stellar crew you had. Not only the team of volunteers who were putting all of the things together, the like kind of nuts and bolts and literally assembling tents and feeding birds all throughout the farm and keeping dogs in order and all of this, you know, like farm life stuff and all of that sort of stuff. But then as well, there was a crew of speakers who were really exciting and dynamic to listen to, and there was much to learn throughout that event. And so I spoke not briefly. I gave a talk. That my patrons will already know about. If you go to patreon.com/ZamboniFunk, you will have seen my lecture already. My lecture was about herbs and health and astrology and how one can look at their natal chart and get some impressions about what kind of health issues and interventions might be pertinent in one's life. And so that was a fun time. That was a nice little talk that I enjoyed giving and that people responded well to. But I'm interested to hear, what kind of things did you hear about? What AC, you just mentioned that you kind of missed all the talks because you were like doing all the other things. You're doing manager stuff the whole time. But I'm interested in what you were able to hear and what kind of things that you heard about as well that were interesting to you.
Well, I also was, in a hosting role. I was also in charge of the food. So I was in the kitchen a lot of the time. And I did not
shout out to that food, by the way, because it was delicious. It was great. I was delighted again and again, several times throughout the event. I was
real good.
That's my tropical
belly, full heart.
Gotta make sure everyone's fed. I'm a little Italian grandmother inside.
This is but
it's important, you gotta be well fed. But so I got to catch a little bit of Eamon Bell's presentation, and she talked a lot. Well, she had some amazing stories from she worked at Flower Power in New York City for a number of years,
which is an herb shop.
Yeah, it's an herb shop. And so she got to like experience like the New York City craziness of people. Like she's talked about like angels, literal angels coming into the store, like an insane person who came in and he's more like possessed person. There's all these kind of stories, and then about fasting too, and like really giving her story about how fasting has helped change her life, and herbs and fasting together, allowing the body to heal itself, were so important. And then I got to experience Matthew Wood's talk. We went to some interesting directions, let's say, but really talking about bat medicine too, which is like it's a deep topic. It's a maybe I'll just hint at bat medicine and dragons. So I got to have a lot of fun experience, that kind of fun stuff. And also like just hearing about everyone seemed to have a really good time at all of the lectures and workshops and walks they did. And we did a mushroom walk, and I walk through our woods all the time, and like they came back with all these mushrooms that I had never seen before.
Yeah, Olga Sogas from Smoketown Mushrooms led that, and people had so much fun on that walk. And I couldn't even believe all the things that they found. And I walk those woods every day, almost like.
Yeah, and I know mushrooms. I know mushrooms. I'm not like an expert at it, but I have. I'm not a total novice either. So
yeah,
it was pretty sweet.
And Don from Woodland Essence, I got to go on his walk for a little bit with my friend Anne Marie, who was in attendance with her twins. So I was like carting them around in a little red cart through the woods. And he hadn't done a talk for over 10 years. So he came out of retirement for the Plant Cutting Conference to do some storytelling in the woods. So that was also a really cool one.
Yeah, Dawn's pretty
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
So is Kate.
I liked that we had like plant walks almost every session. So if people were just like, okay, I've had enough of sitting in a chair or like, listening, I want to take a walk. Like I think that's something we should definitely do again next year. Um, is
Mhm.
having the more like we had the movement in the morning movement classes at like 7:30 in the morning with either yoga or qigong, and then the plant walks to offer like a chance to get up and moving. I think that was a success as well.
Yeah, well, you've really got a beautiful wood situation out there with a lovely trail that goes through, and the ridge where the like light comes through, and then and you could see the light on the top of the trees and all that. It was like really really gorgeous. And
Yeah.
so I didn't even take any of the sort of guided plant walks. You all took me on a plant walk where as soon as I arrived.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of like walked that trail a few times throughout the time that we were there, just kind of by myself and sort of singing to the plants and this kind of thing, which is something that I do a lot of. But but it was that space was really lovely, and it was really great, as you said, that there were opportunities to get your body involved and not just sort of be in a classroom environment, because that is one thing that I notice a lot myself whenever I go to conferences is like, I haven't been in school in many years at this point, and sitting in a classroom for 8 hours is real rough. It's
Yeah, it's
hard
hard.
on me.
Mm-hmm.
So to have these opportunities where we can walk around and do some qigong with Brian Wilkins, who's
Yeah.
also been on the show,
Nice.
and other things like that were really nice. One of the things that you're talking about Don from Woodland Essence. One of the
Mhm.
things that I noticed about this conference was that there was a wide range of ages of people
Yeah.
who were
Yeah.
involved as well. So there were people who were over 70 who showed up, and then there were also people who were like mid 20s.
Mhm.
Not to mention that there were some children
Yeah.
also,
Mhm.
and so it was interesting and fun to see that wide an age range in all kind of in the same space. That's one of the things that I have many critiques of the school system in my country, but one of the critiques that I have is that that it's segregated by age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So older children don't spend any time with younger children. Younger children don't spend any time with older children. And to my mind, they need each other. And
Yeah.
so, and this is also true of adults.
Yeah.
And I think that this is actually one of the things that, there's a wide ranging debate in our culture, or maybe in like internet land. But I don't know. I don't know how true it is in real life. It's hard to tell sometimes. But definitely in internet land, there's a strong debate going on around the idea of cancel culture or not, or the idea of like having difficulty with a certain set of ideas that then makes it difficult to listen to a person at all because they also have that one idea or that one set of ideas. And so one of the things that I've noticed about that is that it tends to sort of divide up between older folks and younger folks.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Not exactly, but that's a pretty general way to look at things. And so to see this event where there were old folks involved and there were also young folks involved, and there was a lot of listening taking place, was really interesting to me and inspiring in that way. There was so that also ended up being kind of a theme of this conference generally, is this idea of bringing together people across disparate idea landscapes and this kind of thing. And there was even a panel about on that topic specifically. And I was privileged enough to speak on the panel along with Eamon Bell, you mentioned, and some other folks who were on that panel. And that was a theme that came up. And also, it's worth noting that the way that you structured the panel was not such that there was a panel speaking to an audience, but rather that the audience had plenty to say as well. And there folks who were not sitting up on the stage had as much time on the mic as people who were sitting on the stage. So it was more of a dialogue. It was more of a conversation than simply a panel speaking to an audience. And so that was really fun and interesting. But I wondered if you had any sort of ideas about that talk or that concept or that set of ideas that that seem relevant in this particular moment that we're living in.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of one of the was one of the goals of the conference too, and of our podcast in general, is to have disparate and different opinions and voices that don't necessarily agree with each other, and see how they can coexist even when there are those differences. Because I think a lot of it. I mean, I feel like this conversation has happened a lot too, but I still see this happening so much in especially internet land. But it's so easy to, it's like on the Facebook or the Instagram or whatever it is, like you're supposed to put in like what makes you your identity and like your political beliefs and all of these things that this is me. And so then it automatically puts you in like conflict with people who are not you. And so then there are all of these little echo chambers of these are me people and these are not me people, you know, us versus them. I mean, it's a simple concept, but it's surprising how easily people get stuck in that mode and then demonize the other. And these, you know, this is just so common. But in real life, you know, we have neighbors of many different opinions and ideas and so on, and we still can get along with them. When you're in a real life situation, when you're in a real community,
it's hard to hate people, like to actually hate people that you know.
When they're a name and a picture on a Twitter feed, then it's like, oh, that person's bad. You know, but when you're actually in person with them, and when you're in. Because we never existed in that kind of situation before. We've always existed in communities that are in person for the most part. And so, and they're also, and this is something that Lisa Fazio talked about too during the panel. It's like, you know, she's Italian American, and she's been very working a lot with the Italian American folk tradition and the Italian folk magic and folk medicine. And she brought up the fact that back in the village in Italy, everyone knows each other going back generations. And so the village healer, like they know that village healer's grandparents, they know their children and their aunts and their nephews. And if that person messes up and like poisons somebody, like they're going to be held accountable, but they're also all, it's part of a community. You can't just exile somebody for having a difference of opinion, if you know what I mean? So that's something that we definitely wanted to support. But and there's also the balance between, like, part of the panel too was there's this bifurcation happening in the herbalist world between like the more of the material reductionist perspective and more of the woo or spiritual perspective. And we're definitely more on the spiritual perspective. Like I'm a magician and an astrologer and a spiritual seeker. I'm not, you know, that's very important to me. And that was the focus of our podcast and the event to a certain degree, to have a place for that perspective. But at the same time, I find the scientific perspective very important too.
Yeah.
And like we've had like Seven Song, for instance, who was AC's teacher. You know, he was somebody.
Like why I studied with him is to really get that botany side down, the science part down.
Yeah. But you know, we've had him on the podcast several times, and we want to have that voice too. The problem that I see that happens is like in the same, like there are Christian fundamentalists who are like, anybody who doesn't agree with me is going to hell and is literally an evil person. You know, anybody who doesn't believe that Jesus is, and I see the same thing happening in my perspective. the cult of progress, the cult of scientific materialism, and even like what we could point out as woke are all those are they come from Protestant theology, Marxism too. Like these are all like religions in my perspective. Really
pitting themselves against the other.
Well, there's a belief structure, and there's a whole set of rituals that go into it. There's all these things that, to my perspective, makes them religions. But that's one of the problems that they've inherited from Protestantism and Christianity is this like, the material is all that there is, and any perspective that is not material only is wrong. And so there's that perspective, and balancing it in a place that is allowing for differences of opinion, but also promoting what we see as more our opinion. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of trick. It's a balance, I guess. I don't know if I said that all that well, but that's kind of like the tightrope we're walking to. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me that part of the issue that we run into when we're dealing with that sort of subject is an issue of humility. It's an issue of feeling like the me types or the us types are right, and we don't have to have a certain sense of humility because we know that we are right. And by that logic, we also know that those other folks are wrong. And one of the things that I felt very proud of myself for saying on that panel was that if we're thinking about cancellation and this kind of thing, then we younger people, we need to have a way of respecting our elders in a way that feels like respect to them. But that also means that we need elders who we can respect. Right.
Yeah.
And so there's a both and kind of situation going on there, right?
Yeah.
And this is part of the reason why I think it's so very useful for us to have spaces where we've got the older folks and we've got younger folks in the same space, where we're and not mediated by screens or whatever, where each side can sort of talk down to the other one, like, okay, boomer. Like if you ever say okay, boomer to someone's face, that's extremely disrespectful to say to someone's face. Rude. Right. So to be in that face-to-face space where potentially we do have some disagreements about what kind of things are real in the world and what things are not real, and is spirituality happening, is it not happening, like all of this sort of stuff, like to be in the same space and openly discussing these ideas in a place where we have also broken bread, where we have also listened to music and danced together and these kinds of things, seemed to me to be a good way for us to think about bridging that gap and how to exist in communities moving forward.
Yeah. After the panel discussion, there was definitely it sparked a lot of discussion among the folks that stayed even after the conference ended officially at like 3 p.m. Sunday. There was some volunteers that stayed after, and we kept that conversation going. And I think a lot of it came down to like accountability. Like, how do we have accountability for each other in the herbal community to set healthy boundaries for these types of discussions, or when somebody does something that is out of line, how do you like bring up these things, or how do you hold them to account? And we have this culture of like instantly going to the I guess like the highest standard, which is like exile. Like the cancel culture is like the kind of what we've historically used for like the worst offenses. And you can see why, because being eliminated from your community and not being able to like be a part of it is one of the hardest things that a human can endure. Like, so yeah, we've kind of like jumped right to that. And I feel like we kind of need to like reel it in, and like there may still be space for exile. Like when somebody is a like violent, or someone who just doesn't want to seek any sort of resolve, or they just continue hurting people, like, and you've tried and they're not ready to see what they've done or change, then like, sure, like maybe you've tried, exhausted all of your other tools for resolve. But yeah, I think that it can be easier in a way to just be like, okay, that person disagrees with me on this thing. Like, I'm cutting them out of my world. I'm cutting them out of my life. I'm gonna, just push them completely away. And it is exhausting to hold people accountable. It's like really hard work. And not everyone has to do that work. Not everyone has to be the one like holding people accountable. But for those that are feeling like they want to step up to it, like, how do we do that? And so I feel like that's a conversation that can roll over into the conference next year and into like conversations like this. Like, how do we actually work together to overcome these issues? Because the powers that be want us to be infighting. They want us to be divided. They want us to hate each other over how we feel about like one particular issue. Like, they don't want us talking and dancing together and sharing meals and like figuring out how to like resist, like, so
work together.
And work together. So I feel like that is one of the most important things we can do in this time, is like figure out how we overcome our differences so that we can work together. And that's why I had that panel. We had that panel discussion, and that's why we made it a open forum. Like, we asked the panelists a few questions and then we lifted the veil and started passing the mic around the room. And it wasn't just like, these are the experts on the stage. It was like, everybody is an expert. Everybody has something to offer. And so
everyone has a voice.
Yeah.
If you wanted to say something, then you had the opportunity to. And I like what Lisa Fazio called it a council. This is a council. You have the people on the stage who are the elders or the experts or the people holding it down there, and then you open it to the whole group to be able to voice their concerns as well, instead of it just be the experts that hand down their knowledge, But the other thing is that I think what you're talking about with humility is so important, because it's one thing to exile somebody for committing violent acts and being unrepentant or something like that. It's another thing to exile somebody because of a difference of opinion. And that's what it seems to be a lot online, especially because you can just self-select into these echo chambers. But what it comes down to, in my perspective, is this idea that I am right. And that's what happens in the echo chambers. You have all these other people who are supporting your idea of what right is. And then they're all being like, yeah, we're right, they're wrong. And then you don't even question that you could be wrong. And from my perspective, there is, it's like, there's no true truths on the relative plane. There's no absolute truth on the relative plane. So no one is ever fully 100% right. And I find this even with people who I look up to. Sometimes they're just so sure that they're right, and I'm like, well, I mean, you could be right. You have it's a valid perspective. It's good to look at another perspective and see where they agree and disagree from my perspective. So, and there's nobody that I agree with 100%. None of the people who I look up to, do I agree with 100%.
Even myself. Like, thinking about all of the times that I've like felt like I was right about something, and now I look back on that person and I'm like, what? Like you didn't have all the information, so
You never have all the information. You can't possibly ever have all the information. It's not
Yeah.
it's not possible.
So we just have to like learn to play nice, and like
Yeah.
figure out how we can overcome some of these like big challenges in the world that we're facing, like
And have some humility.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. And come together in person with people and act online as if the people that you're talking with, interacting with, are actual real people, because they are.
Yeah.
Are they? That's
well, actually, that's a fair question. There are a lot of bots.
Yeah.
There are a whole lot of bots, and that's another thing too. It's like they sway the conversation and the opinions.
Yeah.
Like a lot. Like they have, a lot of different interests have bots online promoting different opinions and agendas, and that's like something that's proven, and people. I mean, it's obvious. So you can't trust what's on the internet ever, especially in the deep fake time.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's like kind of we are in, no matter what you think is going on in the world, I think we can all agree that something significant historically is happening in this moment. We are in a moment that is a bit of a turning point in the zeitgeist. We don't know which way we're turning, and we don't even necessarily know where we're turning away from, but we can notice that this is a moment that's a really big deal here. And some of the astrology can help us to understand that we are living in the age of information, which is like clearly obvious because we're even having this conversation on the internet right now. And in this moment of AI and deep fakes and even just clickbait articles and all of the rest of that, like we're clearly in this moment where thinking thoughts and finding ways to think thoughts in community together is an extremely important thing to do, not only for us between humans, but also if we're thinking about living in like the herbalist space, or as relations in the world at large, right? As the descendants of the plants, for example, or as those who accept the light of the stars on our bodies, and these kinds of things. It's important for us to think with ways of understanding the other ways of knowing things, right? It's possible that maybe plants can know things in ways that we might not immediately understand. And so if we can understand plants as people, or plants as friends, or plants as relatives, then when we can get to our closer relations, people who are still human, but who have differing viewpoints or something like that, I wonder if the skills that we learn in listening to the plants might also be applicable when listening to other humans and those with whom we may have our disagreements. And so, hit me.
Well, I just think that's part of what made this conference so wonderful for us, is like a lot of the people there are practiced in listening and paying attention to other people who might not even be human, and that's kind of a rare skill these days.
Yeah, I wonder if it ever was not rare, but at this moment it certainly is. And that's something that is very worth cultivating. And more than just at this one event, it's gonna take many iterations of learning this kind of skill and practicing this kind of skill. And so if we're thinking about that and many iterations, what's coming next? What are we doing moving forward? Is there a next plant cutting conference coming?
Yes, definitely. So I think we're gonna have it on the
26th and 27th of July.
The astrology looks really good for that weekend. We may be conflicting with some other things, but it's gonna always happen. And it's a good time for it in this area, in this land. The weather's generally good, not too hot, not too cold. The goldenrod's just started blooming. So
goldenrod was so beautiful on those hillsides out there.
Yeah.
Time.
The New England aster too, that gorgeous purple Yeah, that's full bloom at that time too. So yeah, we've only just started planning it. So keep your ears peeled. But I think we have some good people on our list that we're asking to present. So we're really looking forward to it. And it's going to be a lot, like we have one under our belt now, so we know what the capacity of the land is. Like we didn't know really how many people we could fit. Yeah. And now we do. And now we know what we need to do to make, to be able to have, because we reached capacity, which is kind of a big deal for a first year event.
Love it.
Yeah. The barn was completely full.
It really was.
Couldn't really fit anybody else in the barn. Yeah. So next year we're gonna have to get like a bigger tent for like the big things if we want to have more people, which I think we're probably gonna cap it at like 200 people. So that's the plan for next year. Yeah.
Yeah, and if folks want to get on our email list and go to plantcunning.com and sign up on the email form, and they'll be the first to know about who we're having and when tickets are on sale.
Yeah.
Right. So that's plantcunning.com, where you can get on that email list. I definitely would recommend checking out the podcast as well. I'm sure you'll announce it many times on the podcast. And that is a super interesting podcast where there are many interesting conversations with people who have had interesting experiences and who have trained in lots of different crafts and can bring that wisdom to bear in this wider community. It's a wonderful space where lots of learning can take place. So I definitely would recommend that folks will check out the Plant Cunning podcast. I may make another appearance on there at some point in the next little while. We're going to do some astro forecasting and other stuff. Is there anything else you would like to shout out in the meantime?
I guess I am coming out with a book that I should mention this spring with Aeon Books. It's on the Heathen Golden Dawn, a system of ceremonial magic for the heathen. If you're interested in the Germanic gods and you're interested in ceremonial magic, this can be up your alley. So just making that available for people who are interested in that path. So that'll be coming out this spring. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just we've got a lot of great interviews scheduled for the Plant Cunning podcast too, and we've got like over 130 episodes in the backlog. So there's a lot to and we've got to talk with almost everybody that I wanted to when we first started this venture. And
that's amazing.
And some of the people now are into the next life and you can't talk to anymore. So I'm really glad we were able to do that while we did.
That's amazing.
Yeah. R.I.P. Joe Hollis. Very sad. But yeah.
Yeah, this summer I'm also going to be starting out a beta apprentice program at the farm for people who have graduated from herb school and would like to get some more hands-on experience doing product making and weeding and harvesting and like all of the things that a lot of people like maybe don't get in herb school, like some more specific business skills and hands-on type skills. And it's going to be for people specifically who have already done some sort of herbal program. So they have like that base, but want to like take the next step to launch their own business or to see if they want to go into an herbal product making business or a farming business once they see what goes into it.
What it actually takes.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that's something that I've got in the works for this summer.
Dope. That's going to be so good. That's going to be so good. This whole, y'all are so inspiring. It's so much like dream come true shit goes on in your space. Like you got to talk to all the people that you wanted to talk to. You got this industrial kitchen.
You see that kitchen? That is such a dream.
It's amazing.
That herb kitchen, like, it's something I had been dreaming about. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And you're like, one of the big kids, where the littler kids can come and learn and be apprentices in your space. It's like, it's so amazing. The things that you all are putting together are really amazing, not just in the information landscape and the podcast stuff, but like also growing plants and cultivating relationships with birds and mountains and all of the rest of it. It's really, really inspiring to watch and to be even peripherally involved like I am. So I would definitely recommend to What Is the Time listeners to go check out not just the Plant Cunning podcast, but also to come check out the conference in, what'd you say? 26th and 27th of July. It's coming up, coming quickly.
Yeah.
So,
it's true. Thanks, Zamboni.
Say again?
I said thank you for those words. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I'm truly I am blown away over here. It's amazing. It's amazing just knowing you. So thank you all so much for coming onto the show and talking to me and sort of reminiscing together about how wonderful this experience was and getting so excited about it coming up again. I look forward to checking out your book, Isaac. I look forward to seeing all of the beautiful things that come to take place in the future. To the listener, again, I say thank you so much for listening to this event, for checking out all of the things that you can find at plantcunning.com, at ZamboniFunk.com. Thank you so much for rocking with us another time. Thank you so much to the ancestors who made the way possible. Thank you so much to the descendants who take whatever we give to them. Thank you so much to the earth, which continues to hold us up, to the sky, which continues to shine the light on us. We give thanks unto the one most high creator, Jah Rastafari. Thank you all so much for being here. I'll make sure I'll check y'all next time. Bye.
Sweet. Thanks, Zamboni.
Thank you.
Bye.
But wait, there's more. I gave that talk at the Plant Cunning Conference about herbs and health and about astrology, using astrology to understand how to navigate health and that kind of thing. So I've included an excerpt from that lecture here. You can find the full thing at patreon.com/ZamboniFunk. You can find all of the talks that I've done there. You can also find an electional report that can help you to time your life and your business plans and all of these kinds of things. So please enjoy this excerpt from that lecture. See you on Patreon.
Check it, check. Yes, hello there, beautiful people. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. My name is ZamboniFunk. I'm going to talk about astrology and health. It is time to do your thing. If you are still eating, please continue to eat. If you still need to get some food, go ahead and do what you need to do. But it is time for us to begin. So,
if you have
another
break. If you have a different breakout session that you would like to go to, now would be the time to go ahead and go to that session. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And thank y'all and the volunteer staff for like feeding us and making sure that we are well taken care of. Thank you so much. Thank you. Indeed. So I am here to talk about astrology and health. This is an herb conference, and so I was thinking before it was time to go, before it was time to get here, I had been thinking about how I was going to talk about astrology in this context. And so I'm probably not going to talk too much about herbs, like plants to use for such and such a thing, although we might get to that at the very end. I am thinking more, so where we're going to go with this is we are going to think with ways to think with astrology and health. So like tools to use for your own self throughout time. using astrology and working with health and this kind of thing. So before we really get started here, I just want to, Isaac did a great job before in giving thanks and invoking the spirits of the directions, the 4 directions. But real quick, I also would like to say what's up to the Earth Mother, which always continues to hold us up, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, we are always supported by the one great mama here. And so we give thanks. And we also give thanks to the sky, to the ones that give us the light. And indeed, that is what we're here to do today. The light that we have, that we get from the stars, that we get from the heavens, illuminates the path forward. And it helps us to understand and know where we're going and working with things. And so we give thanks to the luminaries, we give thanks to the stars, and we give thanks to the celestial creatures who make this possible for us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So, let's think about it. What even am astrology? Astrology is kind of a weird thing, and it can be a lot to think about sometimes. But the main thing that we need to remember here for this talk is that astrology is how we locate ourselves in time. And so, this is in the context of an herbal situation where we're farming or we're doing medicine or something like this, then it can be a good way for us to, so we can think about lunar cycles, right? If you've ever like planted something at the new moon or done anything like this, right? Then we're using astrology for this. Or even seasonal stuff, like if you're planting at a particular time in the season and this sort of thing. The kind of astrology that I do that uses the tropical zodiac, it is rooted very strongly to the seasons and where we are here. And so we are very much thinking with what we're doing in time. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm ZamboniFunk, and I have I've been doing astrology for a little while. And I don't know, 6-7 years professionally, something like this. And I've done like, I don't know, around 9,000 readings now or something like this. I'm shooting at 10,000. And I also do a daily forecast. I do a daily forecast and a weekly forecast. And so part of the reason why I do these forecasts is because it's good to know what's going on in the heavens in order to get an idea of what's going on here as well. And so when we're thinking in the context of growing plants or being with plants or being with medicine in some kind of way, then it can be helpful to know what's going on in the heavens. So this can be, in the context of a daily weather, that we might have some kind of situation where, like if the moon is with Mars or with Saturn, right? Those are our no-no boys, Mars and Saturn. Those are the ones that bring us trouble, that bring us conflict and challenge and difficulty. And the moon is the one which is closest to us. And so we all live underneath the moon. We live in the sublunar realm. And so whatever's going on in the heavens, then the moon is going to be kind of the arbiter of that. It's going to be the one that delivers whatever else is going on. So if the moon is with Mars or Saturn, then we can know that things might be a little rough. Things might be difficult in some kind of way. So if you have some kind of issue where you're like dealing with a rash or some kind of irritation or inflammation or something like this, then if the moon is with Mars, then it's more likely that things are going to be more irritated in that context or on that day. By the same token, if the moon is with Venus or Jupiter, those are the ones that they're called benefics. They bring us nice things. They bring us comfort and joy and togetherness and cooperation and these kinds of things, right? The kinds of things that feel good on the inside and on the outside. So if we see that the moon is going to be making aspect to Jupiter or Venus, then those might be good days to begin some kind of medical regimen, right? Especially since Jupiter is associated with healing. A lot of times, Jupiter can be associated with wisdom or clarity or meaning or something like this. And so if we're thinking about something like spiritual healing or some kind of prayer practice or something like this, then Jupiter can, when the moon is with Jupiter or making aspect to Jupiter in some kind of way, that might be a good time to begin that sort of thing. Or if you're going to be doing something regularly, and you want it to happen a lot of times, then Saturn might be something to think with here. Now, so I just mentioned that Saturn is one of the no-no boys, right? And so Saturn can be difficult, and indeed it is difficult to stick to maybe a new dietary regimen or something like this, right? Something where, especially, so Saturn is the furthest planet, so where the moon is like very close to us. Saturn is the furthest one away, and so is associated with limitations and boundaries and negation and this kind of thing. Denial, saying no to stuff is what Saturn's job is. So when the moon is with Saturn, then that can feel rough. That can be annoying or troublesome, but it might be a good time to begin to say no to sugar, for example, or whatever it is that you're doing in order to further your health journey, right? And so I publish a forecast every day and every week in order to tune up, just to understand where I am in time. I mostly do the forecast for me. Thank you for watching if you do. But I mostly do it for me just so that I will know where I am in time and I can plan my life accordingly. So this can be, so I've been talking about choosing times to begin stuff. This is called electional astrology, right? Elections meaning to select or to make a choice of some sort. So we can do this with our bodies and our medical regimen. We can do this with our planting or harvesting, or we can do this with ceremony if we're going to have some kind of, especially if you're going to be like doing ceremony, then you might want to think about electing your harvest or something like this, right? And so there's a lot to think with there as far as making choices around how we're going to approach the future. Then as well, with daily weather, we can just think about how we're going to feel on the inside and on the outside, how our bodies are going to feel, right? The moon is the one, so whenever we think about the moon, then it is helpful to remember that the moon is always moving very quickly. So the moon is, because it's the closest one to us, it's always moving through the sky super quickly. It moves through, it changes signs really quickly. It changes aspect relationships to other planets super quickly. And so the moon is then associated with vicissitudes. The moon is going to be associated with the ups and downs of everyday living. So we might be in a situation where, my favorite example to go to with the moon is like, so I wasn't hungry 3 hours ago, but now I am, and I'm mad about it, or something like this, right? This is, you see what I'm talking about over there. So this is the kind of thing that the moon can be associated with. And so whenever we're looking at the day-to-day situation and how I'm going to feel today, then we can think about the moon and whatever's going on with the moon. And this can help to guide our decisions for the day. Now, I'm probably going to have time for questions at the end, but does this all make sense to everybody so far? Anybody got questions? I do encourage a hand raising. Yes, sir, please.
You said about the moon during the day. How would it affect you? Like, you mean like a full moon or?
Yeah. Sure. So how would the moon affect one's daily situation, right? That's your question? Okay, so lunar cycles, absolutely, right? Are we at the new moon or are we at the full moon? Or are we in between? Are we in a waxing moon? Are we in a waning moon, right? So having an awareness of where we are in time, that's what astrology is, right? Having an awareness of where we are in time is going to have an effect on like the things that we decide to do. And also maybe nightlife or something like this, right? Like, one of the things that I think is so very important when we think about medicine, especially when we get into the like alternative or holistic medicine space, is that we are always trying to approach balance, right? That's where a strong, healthy situation is balanced in its way. And the moon always is balanced. The moon spends half of the time dark and half of the time light. But what we can notice is that the moon is not half and half for the whole time. Sometimes it's really full, sometimes it's really dark. And so we can take that as a cue to be like, okay, so there are some times when it's time to push. Maybe I have a conference to do or something like this, right? Working really hard, driving a long time, getting a lot of stuff together, packing, moving hard, right? And then there will be a time after that for rest. And that is balance, right? So we can think about lunar cycles in this way. We can also think about where the moon is today, like where the moon is in relationship to other planets, where the moon is. So lunar cycles is where the moon is in relationship to the sun. But where the moon is in relationship to Mars or Saturn or Jupiter or Venus or Mercury, then those kinds of things can have an effect on, you know, so like Mercury is currently retrograde right now, right? So this is so Mercury is the planet of communication and transportation and exchange and like moving back and forth and all this kind of thing, right? So if the moon makes an aspect to Mercury retrograde, so retrograde means it's moving backwards, right? So direct forward Mercury likes to do the transportation, the communication, and this kind of thing. Backwards Mercury, gonna mean maybe miscommunication, misunderstandings, wires getting crossed, and this kind of thing. So especially on days when the moon is making an aspect to a Mercury retrograde, then we can expect some more of those Mercury retrograde things to come up because the moon under which we live is making that aspect to Mercury, right? So whenever the moon is with another planet of some sort, then we can expect those kinds of significations to be coming down, and we can choose what we're going to do appropriately. Does that make sense?